Hello, this is Nick, and I'm here with Chloe Goodchild. Hi, Chloe, how are you?
Hello, Nick. I'm good, thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, we said we'd have a conversation because on September the 22nd, I'm doing an event for you that will be a kind of launch for your book, but it's also specifically around the whole idea of the voice of self-leadership and how our voice can play a part. But congratulations on your book. I've dipped into it and I've read it. So, beautiful book. As a bigger idea, this is a celebration of your book, but as a bigger idea, what do you feel you were born to do that has led you to doing the voice work that you do in the world? How would you describe that?
Wow, that's a great question. I remember as a child, when I was about 6 or 7, somebody asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember saying to them, well, I either wanted to be a pop singer or wanted to marry Prince Charles. Very kind of, off the wall combination. But when I actually reflect on that more deeply, what I realize is those two themes constellate into the connection between sound, song, the making of song, and song being a very powerful form of communication that's just not just about entertainment, and sovereignty. So I presume, that desire to marry the king of, England.
There's a draw towards sovereignty.
I think so. And those two themes obviously come together very beautifully in the Naked Voice work, because sound is who we are. Every single cell in the body is derives from sound. It's vibration. And so our understanding of who we are and how great the human spirit is and how the voice can connect our soul with our spirit generates ultimately this sense of wholeness and completion of completeness and ultimately sovereignty, a realization of that we are divine and human beings, divine as human beings.
Yeah, and it's interesting because my understanding of the kind of archetype of the king or queen energy is the king or queen is that conduit between the spiritual realm and the earthly realm. So you see the voice as almost like the intersection of the spiritual and the material.
Absolutely that.
Beautiful.
And it's I think what's so exciting and so surprising for people that have been brought up to, with this idea or a story that they have no voice, or that certainly this, long time statement, I'm not a singer or I'm not musical, derives from a severance, if you like, between the speaking and the singing voice, or between the head and the heart. Speaking more is more of a head activity, and sound and singing comes directly from the center of the chest, And so, again, in the Naked Voice, what we're looking to do is to create a seamless thread, if you like, between the speaking and the singing communication, so that we can start to speak very much from a completely integrated presence. So from an
understanding place.
Yeah. Exactly. And then it's very simple. It becomes very simple. Because we can just communicate who we are, without anything in the way, whether we're apparently speaking or singing.
I love one of the things you said in, I'm not sure if it was the book or in one of our conversations about, the world is calling out of each of us a kind of new, powerful authenticity to find our true voices, to speak our truths, not necessarily against things, but for what we truly believe in. And that seems to be at the heart of your work. We've known each other for a couple of decades now, I think, haven't we, since the beginning of Alternatives. And I know that that's been what you've been committed to in the world is your voice and helping other people find their voices for planetary transformation.
Absolutely, without question. And I think that's where sound and singing is so brilliant, because it's not only non-threatening use of our true power, it's also, it moves very fast like water, and you can gather a group of people very fast and shift from the rational mind into, an intuitive heart space together where, human beings can listen to each other and express sometimes very difficult feelings, for example, that otherwise would have been difficult or challenging or threatening. It's so interesting that how singing and shared sound, it brings and it accelerates the possibility of oneness. In a way that speaking perhaps can be a slower movement, which is why we love to bring poetry in, of course, because that's a great bridge between, rational speak and ecstatic song, ecstatic love song.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I know part of your passion is to be the cause of transformation, and I know one of the stories I was reading in your book, and I know you've had to kind of keep confidences around it, but you actually did voice work with a group of international policymakers, didn't you? Can you just share so that people would understand what you did, the intervention and the impact that you had?
I was so impressed. I just learned so much from this event. It was a 3-day conference where international policymakers were coming together to really discuss the state of the world, and particularly to look at the Star Wars issue at that point. And so there were representatives from many countries. And I was invited in to be the musical surprise, which took place.
More of a surprise than they thought, I would imagine.
It was that. And I think we were all very pleasantly surprised, actually, by the outcome of that, interaction. What happened was I spent 3 days, if you like, listening to the language that they were using for, ways, bringing new solutions to defense issues, defense matters. And of course, there was a lot of very high tech there, and there was a lot of discussion about essentially how can we defend ourselves from death. That was really, and that's what I got. To begin with, I thought, okay, so I'm coming in to assist people, perhaps to assist this group in an exploration of how sound can actually shift our fear of death more into an engagement with our own mortality. And so that's actually what happened. And the outcome was extraordinary, because the first question I asked, following an improvisation based on a lot of the jargon and the technological and defense jargon that was being used, I actually just asked a simple question, as my father had just died. Has anyone here been in the presence of someone who has actually died? Just one person. There was a lot of talk about, wiping out whole sectors, and to my utter astonishment, there was no response to that. And that catalyzed, I basically shared with them that I was with my father when he died, and that I was able to sing with him as he was dying. And there was something about the singing that alleviated, that dissolved any separation between this room, this physical room, and the next room, the invisible room, the beyond physical room. And I shared this story about how the sounding, and because my dad was a priest, we were actually singing the Lord's Prayer. And so there was this incredible moment with Thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever, amen. And there was this incredible opening at that point, and I was describing this story to this group, and then how he was able to actually leave with his eyes wide open, consciously staring into the beyond. Wow. That was my sense of it. It was incredibly powerful, long silence, and despite the Cheney-Stokes breathing, there'd been this 3 very clear breaths at the end.
Wow.
And it was wonderful because the whole family was there, and that really gave birth to this exercise that I do called One Breath, One Voice, where you just let out a sound as if it was the last breath of your life.
Wow.
Or the first. Could be the first. Could be, somebody responding to your question, what were you born to do? And then, you can sing out, as to your response as to what that might be.
Wow. And did this all have a big impact on the policymakers and open up a conversation?
I have to say they were really generous and incredibly open-minded in their response to this conversation and the question. And it demonstrated to me that it's possible to create, a circle, a gathering of folks that can come together, can put down their positions for a moment in time and explore how their shared sound, before words, before, stances and opinions and viewpoints and duality, how just this shared sound can assist us to arrive at one voice, what we call a singing field, a field of sound where the diversity of human feeling and experience and circumstance is accepted, is acknowledged and welcomed. Yeah.
Well, I really honour you for going in there and doing that, because I'm sure you must have felt quite vulnerable doing that. So I really honour you for doing it.
It was an incredible privilege, actually, I have to say.
Yeah. So just to finish off, what can people expect from an evening with you on the 22nd of September? So you're going to be speaking, obviously, using your voice, but presumably you're going to get people using their voices as well. So it's going to be experiential. Can you just give us a couple of ideas on what we can expect from the evening?
Absolutely. Well, we've called it the voice of self-leadership. So I would love us to explore, how the naked voice, very much supported by the book itself, which is like a handbook of practices for this whole question of how we can really integrate our full authority through the voice. So there'll be this one breath, one voice exercise. People might like to even have a little go at it before they come, where you just don't think, you just take in a big breath and you just, hey, oh, you can just sound out for all your worth.
Wow.
The point of that exercise is actually to investigate the quality of silence that you leave behind. So we're going to be investigating the nature of listening and non-judgmental listening, and how that quality of non-judgmental listening to ourselves and to each other actually is a vast and potent catalyst for self-leadership. So we'll be exploring the elemental, the energy and the emotions that we are having to learn how we can integrate these in our everyday lives, and how the voice can help us to integrate. The emotional body will really be focusing on that emotional body, and how there are these sounds in the body. We have instinctual emotions, we have intuitive emotions, we have insightful emotions. How our naked voice can really integrate those three realms. Without which there can be no true, authentic voice or certainly leadership for others.
Well, I'm looking forward to the evening, and everybody coming is going to get a copy of your book as a gift, so they can go away and continue your practices on their own. So I want to thank you for this time together. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, and I look forward to our event together on the 22nd of September.
Thank you so much, Nick. I look forward to it.
So thanks, Chloe. See you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.